Japan has always been intertwined with the arts, whether it be poetry, painting, or architecture. This has always been a major fixture of their society, and we can feel its influence today as we reflect on the golden age of Japanese cinema. This cinematic movement pulls from all aspects of the region's rich history in what normally amounts to a celebration of not only their culture, but also art as a whole. Famous auteurs like Akira Kurosawa treat the camera like a paintbrush as he crafts every frame with meticulous detail, creating an art piece every second. He defines the genre with his attention to composition, much like the many famous Japanese painters that came before him. But why are these films able to stand the test of time and remain iconic 70 years later? Essentially, during World War II, the US had placed censorship on the production of samurai films as they glorified feudal violence, essentially prohibiting a connection between the people of Japan and their history. When this ban was lifted, the genre boomed, as the entire country was swept up in a nostalgic wave that they could use to escape the destruction of their present. These films were beautiful, action-filled adventures that celebrated a culture lost in the ashes of the war, and the whole world loved them, producing iconic stories and layered characters whose impact still ripples throughout cinema today. The films most famously gained notoriety due to the grand fight scenes depicting duels, as two samurais face off in a fight to the death, or two armies at war with each other, or even a lone ronin skillfully taking down dozens of men who oppose him. These battles are one of the biggest selling points of this era of filmmaking in Japan, due to their stunning choreography, as well as the skillful camera work used to capture the big sweeping movements of the scenes. The genre has influenced Western media in ways many people do not recognize. This is clearest when you look into the influence films like Sanjuro had on Western. Everything from the stoic protagonist to the surprising prominence of gang wars that we see in iconic westerns can be traced back to Japanese cinema like Sanjuro and Yojimbo. These historic masterpieces having this evident of an influence on cinema further speaks to the genre's unique conventions and style. Interestingly, whilst the genre produces films that influence the future generation of Western filmmakers, it also looks back to draw inspiration from Western theatre, mainly Shakespeare and his plethora of iconic plays. Kurosawa most famously based his films Throne of Blood and Ran on Macbeth and King Lear respectively. I love this detail about the genre's history, as it celebrates art from centuries before its time and infuses it with the country's own history, elevating the source material in some ways. These films masterfully combine the two, including everything from the protagonist being manipulated by his partner to the epic battles that lead to the death of the story's lead. Ran is famous for its stunning visuals, mainly highlighted by the use of colour to capture the grand battles and armies, but most films in the genre were shot in black and white. This did not stop these other films from being visual masterclasses, as rather than using colour to tell an engaging story, they opt to place a focus on dynamic composition. Rashomon is a perfect example of this, as Kurosawa uses mastery of the camera to craft this amazing story that plays the spectator alignment in an incredibly engaging way. The film uses foundational techniques like the over-the-shoulder shot, symmetry, and repetition of shots in such a unique and inspired way that it's honestly amazing, considering how early this was into cinema as a medium. The film manages to juggle all these techniques while still having interesting characters, mainly the bandit and the wife, two astonishing, expressionate performances that push the line in such an interesting way that it leaves you in awe. Rashomon revealed two things to me. The characters in these films normally take two forms, either the stoic samurai, like Yojimbo, or a person who is completely gone off the edge, playing into their character to the extreme. I also learned that these films often aim to critique masculinity, whether it be the sons in Ran or the central conflict in Rashomon. This taught me that samurai films do not only serve as a celebration of the period, in a desperate bout of escapism after the horrors of the war, they also act as a retrospective look into the deep-rooted issues in Japanese culture. Unlike the films made before the war, these films acted as a response to the militaristic culture that resulted in the country joining World War II, whilst their predecessors acted as a form of propaganda to mythologize the country's martial history. This criticism is most evident in arguably the greatest film of all time. Harakiri. Most bluntly, the film's title being a reference to the ritualistic act of suicide a dishonored samurai must go through, instantly highlights the issues Kobayashi has with the period. The anti-samurai masterpiece echoes the issue everyone has with the institutions we come across on a day-to-day basis, peeling back the facade of honor many flawed systems tend to hide behind. One major motif in the film to highlight this struggle is the pristine set of armour seen in the opening and closing scenes. The armour is untouched by the end of the film, despite the struggles Hanshiro goes through to dethrone the establishment, a reflection of the fact that his actions had no effect on the system. Kobayashi uses the suit of armour, something that is so heavily tied to war and bravery, and uses it to reflect the government's cowardice as they hide behind it in an effort to look past any issues in their society. The film is filled with details like this as we follow a disillusioned samurai as he tries to fight corruption. Ultimately, in the public eye, this era of Japanese filmmaking is remembered for the daring duels and battles. But it exists as far more than that. It's an era of filmmaking filled with questions related to honour and duty, as Japanese filmmakers attempt to grapple with their tumultuous history while celebrating the nuggets of artistry found through the haze of war and conflict.